Good morning, everyone. I hope you're here. Welcome to the 17th of July, 2020. Not the 17th of June. I apologize for that. I mentioned that perhaps that was wishful thinking, and I got a response saying that he didn't want to be in June this year, but I think July is actually no better particularly, and I think the whole year is the year which we hope to get over. And whether we like it or not, it seems to be going on as quickly as it can be. Today I came armed with coffee, so yeah. I'll put this aside. No, it's okay. And come back. So on the 17th of July, what do we have here now today? We find that yesterday, in the United States, we reached a record. We had a record of a daily total of over 73,000 cases. That is twice the high point of the last sort of major spike in the disease in April, when it was 35 or so thousand in the daily total. So this is quite a record. Not something that the United States should be proud of, I imagine. Although, listening to some people, it seems like this is something that is just par for the course. Not only was yesterday 73,000 in the United States just for that day, but the worldwide total is now approaching very quickly, and I probably by the end of today will be 14 million at least. It's really quite remarkable. And not only that, we have in areas which were actually supposedly cleared of the virus, are now experiencing spikes. So we are not over with this, and we still have to be very careful, and we must follow the rules and the results of science. And I'm always amazed at how, instead of actually facing up to the problem, dealing with the problem, what people often do seems like what ostriches have been known, not known, but it's pretty much a mythology, but which have been said to do, which is they bury their heads in the ground to pretend that nothing actually happened. I mean, that's very much happening in the United States. And not only that, we're in the midst of a cultural war over the wearing of masks. Something I have no sense of why this is happening. Of course, science has said, we should say very simply, that wearing the mask will cut down the transmission of the disease very significantly. That's the one thing. But The other thing is, what is the issue about wearing a mask? If someone wears a mask, I can still tell who that person is. I can still talk to that person. That person can talk to me with the mask. I don't have the mask here. Maybe I should wear a mask even though I'm just in the sanctity of my apartment, simply with Ayako, and not actually meeting anybody else except all of you online. That's really quite baffling to me, how this has become a matter of life and death for certain groups of people, and it has been somehow warped to the sense that this is not only an infringement of someone's freedom, but is it as a sign of fascism, it is a sign of dictatorship, etc., etc. The wearing of masks, unbelievable. Okay, I'm going on. I'm supposed to keep, yes. Well, there's still many more things. I'm also, dismayed by the carelessness with which scientific and supposedly scientific information is being disseminated nowadays. Where it used to be that everything had to be peer vetted, had to be discussed, and still, of course, there are many mistakes were made, but anyway, what we have now is a situation where one week something is the one case, another week another thing is the case, etc., etc. And most recently, we have this issue. It's probably a month ago or so, maybe not even. We all must have read and seen in the internet that our blood type had something to do with how sick we would get. Oh, 1 second. What's happening? Sorry.
Nothing.
Is it okay, or is there a problem with the microphone?
Nothing. This is fine.
No? Okay. Uh-huh. Yeah. Hold it. I'm getting all these messages before I continue. Actually, let me just finish this. Okay. So blood type was very important. It's as an important indicator of how sick you would get, and that meant an indicator of the kind of treatment that you should get, that one should get, let's say. Now, yesterday, we find out that blood type is not an important indicator, as it turns out. It's not that this is confusing. I think that this is rather irresponsible. Okay, I think enough of that, and now I have to go just quickly try to understand the sign language I'm getting from behind our wonderfully sophisticated iPhone Livestream video machine. Yes.
Everything's fine.
It's okay.
Yeah, it's okay.
Oh, what is it?
Talk about. Let's move on to the music.
I want to move to the music.
Yeah.
I'm just stalling as I'm waking up, I have to say. Okay, now, today I thought that we would move to more kind of, well, everything has its practical side, but to more practical discussion of clarinet techniques, since I think a lot of people are interested in that. But before that, and I must say I have to continue with my rant a bit today. It's gonna take a little while, but I want to simply see. Oh, one thing. See, this is kind of nice. I just got a new chair. Look at that. Isn't that great? Okay, so I'm going to take this here just so I can read about a few things. Yeah. And this is part of my the curiosity that was sparked in me about musicians and composers who should be known, but for various reasons, for perhaps reasons of their skin color, perhaps for reasons of the fact that they died also, they could not live a full life, are unknown, and yet are quite significant in their own way. And I just want to share this with people. I'm not going to have a big lecture about this or whatever. The first was a composer whose name was Saint-Georges Joseph du Boulogne. Actually, it's Joseph Boulogne du Saint-Georges, I should say. He lived from 1745 to 1799, and he was called the French Mozart. And he's someone who I never knew about. And he was not only a brilliant composer, but he was considered to be the premier marksman, swordsman, I should say, in Europe. Now, Saint-Georges, he was born, in Guadeloupe. His father was French, who had been exiled there, and in Guadeloupe, he actually became fairly wealthy because of a sugar plantation which he acquired, and his name was George Saint-Georges. Okay. I'm just reading a bit about this because, of course, I don't really know this by memory, and I don't really know very much about him. Except now, this Joseph was here. Let me get this here. Joseph was the son of George and his slave. It's a woman from Senegal who worked as the maid to his wife. But George quickly, as the boy was still very young, was a baby, realized that this was someone who was extraordinary. French. Yes. He was French, and he said about giving his son a very thorough education, of course, on classics, in music, in art as well, and of course in martial arts of the time, especially in fencing. Okay, now, they returned to France, and here I'm sort of going between two biographies here. It was quickly understood that Joseph was a brilliant musician, and very soon after he started studying the violin, actually began to study composition there. And what is very interesting for us is that Karl Stamitz, who has a special place for clarinetists, actually dedicated his 6 orchestral quartets, this is Opus 1, to Joseph Boulogne de Saint-Georges. I think it's very interesting. Not only he did, but of course the composer is Gossec, who also was his teacher, dedicated works to him as well. However, because he was not white, you could say, even though he became one of the most famous and most established composers in France, he met opposition and of course prejudice. Now, I should read one little thing. This is translated from French, of course. This is, he was supposed to become artistic director of the Royal Academy of Music at l'Opéra, at the Opera in Paris, but the nomination collapsed in the face of strong opposition, especially from singers such as Sophie Arnaud and Rosalie Levasseur. Now, I found this here. A young American known as Chevalier de Saint-Georges, who combines the most gentle manners with incredible skill in all physical exercises and very great musical talent. But the artistes nevertheless at once addressed a petition to the Queen to beg Her Majesty that their honor and delicacy of their conscience made it impossible for them to be subjected to the orders of a mulatto. In other words, they didn't want to have a boss who wasn't white. So, this is just to show that the poison of prejudice, of course, is as old as humankind. Now what I want to do here is just play, here we are, a little bit. And this is his Symphony Opus 11, and okay, this is too small, but I was able to get this to work earlier, so let's hope I can do this now. And it just is the first movement, Allegro. And it's not very long right now, but let's see if this is right. Okay, so I hope this actually works. goes on, you have a recap. But as you can see, even just from this brief moment, we can see what an accomplished musician he was. And he's someone who not only faced prejudice because he was not white, he also died prematurely. So he died in 1799. And had he lived longer, perhaps we would have known about him more. He would have lived into the time of Beethoven. So I have other composers who should be known, and but I think that I will actually leave them until next week, since I've been blabbing to such a degree today. Okay, and so I come to, let's put this away. Put this away. Oh, I have to do one more thing. I'm very sorry about this. This is an email I received this morning from a colleague and friend and a former student also, about some person who has developed a theory about something, what is called the so-called whole beat metronome practice. And what that means, apparently this person has become quite well known, although I have no idea who it is, and I've never heard of them. That I have to laugh. That basically all classical music is being performed twice too fast. And I simply bring this out because the nonsense of this is actually remarkable. Not only do you have very detailed description by the wonderful scholar Alan Walker of how Liszt was the conductor, not only the pianist, but he was the conductor who began taking the tempos of Beethoven's symphonies a little slower so that all the inner voices and details of phrasing could be more apparent. And then again, we have before the metronome, this whatever whole beat metronome nonsense is, I don't even know. Even before that, there was a system of indicating tempos by a length of string. Because the idea of the pendulum is that if you have this length and you have a weight on the end, the actual oscillation depends on the length of the string. So the shorter the string, the faster it goes. The longer the string, the slower it goes. And you have works, even works by Reicha, for instance, where he is indicated by the length of string what tempo he has. I mean, there are other issues of the metronome, which I talked about in quite detail, I think, during one of my Brahms sessions. But that is totally not related to this issue. And I just bring this up because, once again, this has to do with how, first of all, most likely, a little bit of knowledge can in fact be very dangerous, and how this little bit of knowledge nowadays can become actually disseminated so quickly throughout the world, and people all of a sudden say, yeah, okay, that's right, that's what we have to do. If I find any, I'm totally tongue-tied. If I find out anything more about this, and it seems at all, it's not worthy, but maybe I should say interesting enough to bring up again, perhaps next week I will, but otherwise, maybe we should all forget about it. Okay, so, I know. So what am I supposed to talk about now? And this is, and I mentioned about the technique and musical technique. Now, I spent earlier sessions on the embouchure of the clarinet, on basic posture, on breathing also, and now I will spend time more on finger motion, and that works. Now, what I do need, it's always that. I'm never prepared, but I think, yeah, I kept this here, so maybe this will work. Just take a readout and see if it works. This is funny, isn't it? Everyone's thinking, who is this guy? It's really silly. Okay, so I'm going to take an A clarinet out. No. Let's see first if this is really... Okay, it's way too soft, but it will do. Okay, now this goes back here, and I speak about fingers, and I spoke earlier also about the fallacy of relaxation. It's when we play, just like when we are awake, and even when we're asleep, we are not relaxed. And when people talk about relaxation, often they go, oh, that's just, I play, I have to relax like this. But no, of course. When you're playing music, just like when we're walking down the street, we need to have energy and force and strength. And I mentioned about strength in the embouchure. And now we need strength in the fingers. Okay. So, I lost something. Hold it. Oh no, it's gone. Ah, I found it. I found something. Good. This is very important. This is a sponge. So why do I have a sponge here? It's because the sense of the finger motion when you're playing should be like squeezing a sponge this way, as I'm doing this here. So in other words, not simply moving up and then that, but feeling that there is a follow-through this way. Well, follow-through is very important in sports, especially. In tennis, for instance, if you don't have a follow-through in your stroke, and my tennis is less than a beginner's level. But anyway, I know this, at least, that you need to follow through that, And of course, if you don't, you can actually break your arm. But the follow-through also creates a sense of rhythm. So it's not I mean, there is some rhythm in that too, but there's a more sense of rhythm, which for technique on the clarinet, basically in any instrument, is not only useful, but essential for that. So once again, let's talk. So when I go back to the clarinet here, everyone probably thinks I'm totally nuts, which is true. That even though the clarinet is not a sponge, you should feel that the motion into the keys has the sense of continuing, as if you were actually pressing a sponge. So you go to here and then you continue this way. Yeah. Okay. Now I speak more about finger motion, and the fingers, of course, go down and go up. This way, and you're thinking, obviously, that's true. But this is important for several reasons. First of all, our fingers are more geared to going down and grabbing than going up. And that's why if we play, for instance, if we go down on the instrument, that's most of the time easier than something like that. Okay. Where the fingers have to go up. So, why don't I put this closer, maybe, then I don't have to do this, even though it's kind of fun. See, I'm becoming even more casual here as I'm in this void. So that, here we go. This is the next thing, is the rubber band, but the fingers have to go up. And it's also important to understand that the muscles which pull the finger down and the muscles which pull the fingers up are different. This way. So first of all, what is very important when we are playing, when we are moving our fingers, is that we avoid what is called isometric tension. And I mentioned that earlier in terms of the embouchure. And you have, for instance, if I'm here, I'm just holding this way, and there is this force, an isometric force, in a way, that is holding the rubber band open, and the embouchure wants to close, but you hold it open this way. And the tongue position also stretches that way. And since you're meeting some opposing part of the mouth, for instance, you stop, but you still have the sense of force. So there's also a feeling of implied motion, even though you don't move. Okay, but we do have a problem with the fingers. And that is this, that if you take your hand, for instance, you can actually, this is an experiment for everybody, and you just do this. No problem. Very good. both hands. You can do both hands that way. Then, but now let's say you just do this. You go down quickly, and then you go up only a tiny bit. So up this way. All of a sudden, you become tight here. So this is isometric tension. Right? And what's happening is as you are moving up, the muscles which are pulling you down, prematurely, I should say, start to pull the finger down this way. So and that creates a sense of tension because you have both sets of muscles pulling at the same time. Okay, so this is something that we have to actually guard against. It's kind of that in the finger motion. Now I want to go and I was going to actually go to a YouTube video, but I won't do that now. Because I'm being told no, don't do. Okay, this would have been of the great jazz drummer Buddy Rich, and just to show how when he's manipulating the sticks, depending on the tempo that he's going, he goes either higher or lower. So he can go like this way. Now, if we go to, for instance, taiko drumming, Japanese taiko drumming, and other ones, tabla, etc., we find the same thing. So there is this sense of a kind of period, and that just like the pendulum, where the longer string is slower and the shorter string is faster. We see that in drumming as well. Now, what does that have to do with clarinet playing? And we can actually expand this to other instruments as well, but especially clarinet. And wind instruments have a peculiarity in that you make the sound by lowering and raising the fingers. If you're playing the piano, you can only create the sound by lowering the finger and striking the key so that the hammer actually strikes the thing. And the lift will only stop the sound, or not stop the sound if you actually have the pedal down. So this up and down motion in a wind instrument or of the clarinet is very important to understand that we actually move up as well as we move down this way. Now I come to my point about drumming and motion in general. So if I do this here, and many of you already know this, I know, but I'm sure that many of you don't. So I'm actually going over things which probably many of you have heard before, and my apologies to those of you who have heard. But anyway, if I do this, here, I'll do it again. Did I move my fingers quickly or slowly? Now, this is actually a trick question, because the motion of each finger is no different than if I play That way. It's just the connection is faster. Okay, now we go on and we say, we do this. Did I move my fingers quickly or slowly? Another trick question, because that depends on the finger. So if I take this finger here, that moved very fast up and down. This finger moved a little slower. This finger moved a little slower. By the time we get to here, it's a that finger moved like this. Quite slowly, in fact. So what that means is that when we are playing the clarinet, you do not necessarily move your fingers quickly in order to play quickly. And the same thing goes, for instance, if we do a double trill. Let's say we do a trill like this. In order to be fast enough, I don't even take my finger off the key with this. I don't. But let's say I do a double trill. In other words, we have those two here. You can do it. You do. That way. You can go actually faster in this double trill, but the motion of each finger, of these two fingers, is slower. The coordination becomes faster. And here we come to drumming once again. Because if I keep my fingers too close, I can't do it. But you find the height where the periodicity, I should say, of each hand actually creates a pattern which allows this trill to happen. Now, I can do the same thing even with one hand, and I do this on occasion, just because it's fun. And certain pieces where I don't have to worry about things. Like, for instance, if I could do this here, but I can do that way with two. I can do with three. You see, all of that. And of course, when I'm doing with two, the thing goes faster. When I do with three, it goes faster, but my fingers move slower. Okay, so this is an important thing to realize, that we do not need to keep our fingers close to the instrument in order to play. But the fingers will find their height depending on what they're doing. Okay? You see, so what that means, and you know, I've been the subject of probably of death threats because of this idea, which is very, very old. I've been ever since I was even a teenager. I thought about this, and then when I started teaching this way, and I would get letters and people saying, you know, how can you say this? This is unbelievable. This is ridiculous, etc., etc. Okay. Let's make a slight detour now about fingers. Now, the other thing is that our bodies are not designed for micro movements. So let's say you have the fingers and you just do this, like this. And you try to coordinate exactly. It's not so easy. Then you do this. That's very easy. This whoop, but this way is not easy and creates isometric tension. So, this idea that we do not need to actually limit the motion of the fingers is critical for developing a really virtuosic and solid and secure technique, finger technique on the instrument. But realize that this does not mean that you're just moving like this, which is what immediately people would say. It's just like what's happening in politics now, where they could cherry pick a little thing here and a little thing here and put together this wow, da 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 da. That's our wonderful Senator Elizabeth Warren made a joke about how even her dog is going to vote Democratic, and someone just took that out of context and see, Elizabeth Warren is for voter fraud, that she's going to allow dogs to, okay. So, going on with this. So this does not mean, but it means that the fingers will actually find their motion. Now, another problem with the clarinet is if we compare, for instance, with the piano, if you learn to play the piano, you learn not only hand positioning, but you learn motion. So there's even the very simple things. You beginner and you learn hand exercise. And up, down, etc., etc. Okay, so you learn something like that. But on the clarinet, we don't really do that. Okay. I was lucky in that my teacher, after my father, who also did have a sense of finger motion, that I studied with the great Leon Rushinoff, and he had exercises so that the fingers can feel rhythm inside. Now, I will get to these exercises in a minute, but what I want to do now has to do with exercising a lifting of the finger here, and we can do this. Let me see. This is, I should double this up here, but this is a little bit too. It's good to have a smaller rubber band. This is a rubber band. The rubber band is very useful. It's useful for the embouchure. Now it's even more useful for the fingers. So, first of all, just an exercise like this. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. 1, 2, 1, 2. Then here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. Let's say 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1. Here, this one, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, and the little finger too. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2. My finger is so double jointed. Here, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, and 1 and 1 and 1. See, okay. So that's then there's another exercise, and this is also you take the rubber band and you twist it one way, put it on the next finger, twist it again. next finger, twist it, next finger, twist it. This rubber band should be big enough that you don't create too much tension. And there, we go from there and we stretch the hand. And again, you do this in rhythm. One, two, three, one, two, one, 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 and one. Okay, and another exercise. This is, but I think I will use this rubber band for that. Yeah, so gives a little more support, and this is this way. Where again we go with all fingers. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 2, 1. Okay, and it's very good for exercising the muscles which actually lift the fingers. There also are little machines you can buy, and I saw one that was interesting, which I ordered, but it hasn't come yet. I had bought one before, but it was really much too resistant, and I think that was not useful. But the rubber band is probably the cheapest and finally probably the best way of exercising this. Okay, then also, what I see very often when I play is that if people play, let's say people are playing, what should I do? Let's say this way. That way. They do. That way. So the finger motion is very abrupt. We can feel that, again, we go back to drumming, that the fingers have a sense of rhythmic motion. I should say rhythmic periodicity, in fact, I say. And again, we do new exercises. We can use two hands, for instance, here. And what we do is this. Let's say we have 4 beats, and we have slow beats. If you are particularly thorough or whatever, you can use a metronome. But let's say you go 1, 2, 3, 4. And we want to extend the hand by 4 and then come back by 1. Or another by 4, let's say. Yeah, so 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 4, 4, 3, 2, 1. But we just do up to 4 each time. So it'll be 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You can do it in 3. 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3, 1, 2, 3. You can do it in 2. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. In 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. This way. You see. So the point is not to, let's say in 4, not to go 1, 2, 3, 4. But 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. And you can end with squeeze. I mean, don't squeeze so hard that you constrict your blood flow. But anyway, so here goes 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. You see, so that you control how your fingers move. Then you control the internal rhythm. Then you go back to here. And we have that kind of motion. wondered why, even though I advocate moving the fingers a lot, people who have watched me play have come up to me and say, but you know, you don't move your fingers so much. You know? And I think that's because the finger motion is determined by the music. So if I do that, it doesn't seem like I've moved my fingers a lot. Yeah, okay. You see. Now if I do fast, I do not go do that way. You see. So because the motion of the fingers is geared or expresses the rhythm, and actually even more than the rhythm, the expression of the music, it does not seem like I'm moving my fingers quickly. Or I move my fingers a lot, I should say, this way. So this sense of control over the motion of it. Okay, I'm going to talk about something else now, but related to that, and that has to do with rotation. And this is another important thing, that our fingers should not simply move this way, but our hands can move this way too, depending on where you're playing on the instrument. Now, if you play other instruments, you play a string instrument, you play the piano, the sense of positioning is really critical. Of course, the piano you can see very easily. If you're up here, you're like this. If you're here, you're like that. You're here, you're like this. If you're playing an octave, you're here. If you're playing something else, there. So that's it. If you're playing an arpeggio, that the sense of how the hand moves is very important. Now the clarinet, because we don't move our hands all the way up and down like this, has a much subtler range of rotation, but there still is a range of rotation. And well, I don't know, why am I playing down the A clarinet? Actually, I do know, because I was going to go back to Stravinsky, and I will do that. Because of certain things in the second movement which are not so easy, perhaps, and I wanted to actually demonstrate in pieces this way. But let me go to the B-flat clarinet now. Uh-oh. This has a mouthpiece, but I think that this I don't like. So, this comes off. Ah! Goes here. This goes here. And this rotation is even apparent here, for instance, and here, and then to a greater extent here, or here. Let's say, in the left hand, if I'm going up here, there's rotation in this way. If I go up here, there's rotation this way. This way. So, this is, you can see rotation if I do this exercise. the instrument, rather than simply trying to move the little finger. This way. So we have here 1, 2, 3, 4 basic positions in the instrument, and they involve this subtle rotation. And then, of course, we have more because you have this here, or going up here, fine. Here. And I should go back to the A clarinet because that's even more, yeah. So why did I do this on B flat? You see, I'm totally, but this is a B flat clarinet, of course. Okay, I go back to the A clarinet because the examples that I want. Here we go, back here. And I have to see, I'm so scatterbrained. So once again, it's a half step lower, but and then here. And the reason I want the A clarinet is because in Mozart, for instance, and this is, of course, this all refers specifically to French instruments, but it also it applies to German system instruments too. There is also rotation. It's not the same because the key mechanism is different, but the principles are the same. So see, so when I play, for instance, a B flat here to a D or even a C sharp, if you look at this, because my hand is rotated, this finger is here. You see, so I'm not playing. It goes that way, see. So that. So in another live stream, I was thinking of actually having a title of "In Praise of Normal Fingerings," and how, in fact, if you do understand this rotation, that quite often the so-called fake fingering that people end up using is more difficult. So if we have that's from Ravel Daphnis, this one place which I see the most bizarre fingerings people try to, but it's actually quite easy to play if you rotate your hand. So this rotation is important. Now, not only that, but the left hand is something very special, especially on our French instruments here, because the F sharp is here. You see. So, I understand now why I wanted to use the B flat clarinet. So I'll come back to it now. But we still need this. So, in fact, what I do is there's rotation this way, but the left hand, in fact, has not only rotation, but a motion this way. So you can see here, but sorry, you see, is there. So in this case, what I do is I just hold the fingers and I move my hand. You see, so I don't move the finger, but the hand moves. And the important thing is to find the height. If you're too far, it doesn't work. If you're too close, it doesn't work. You find out. This way. And since I'm rather double jointed, this is actually the way it looks. You can see. Now, why am I showing this in particular, and especially on the A clarinet, comes from that passage, which is rather tricky in the Stravinsky three pieces, the second of the Stravinsky three pieces. And this here, and people are playing this way, etc., etc. But it's actually very easy if you have this motion going this way. I just pull the hand back, then forward. No problem. So that is this here, and that's why I wanted to show this. Now also, that passage here, which is not so hard, but to move from here to here, very simple, I rotate again. And not. So this has to do with this basic way of rotation. I go to the B flat clarinet now.
Before that, Amy.
Yes, tell me.
Asking how do you roll, how fast and definite?
Yeah.
That pass, rotate. You know.
How fast?
How to rotate that.
You mean in deafness?
Yeah.
Yeah, I just show you, but it's you see, it's a matter of positioning. So maybe I misspeak. Never worked. This way. Okay. Yeah, I will do more about this at another time, I think. Where I speak about how often regular fingerings can actually work. Oh, but no matter what, you need to put the reed on correctly. Here we go. Here. So here. You see, so it's basically, I don't rotate so much here because I'm here. It's in this way. And then the next one, I forgot what that is right now. I forgot what is that? I can't remember. This comes another week. Probably. Yeah, in context, of course, I know it. But you see, the first one, my hand is simply there. If I'm here, it's impossible. But here, you see? So I basically sort of don't rotate, but I have rotated the hand. So it's this way, and it's not this way, It's just enough so that we're here. And then the second one goes down, and there's a rotation this way. The rotation is slow because there is just a very small rotation, and then you see. So even if that's fast, the actual rotation of the da-da-da is this way. There. You see. So, this rotation is another part of technique which is not only useful, but also, I believe, is essential that way. So it's together with the motion of the fingers this way and the rotation this way. And that's all done with these rhythmic periods, you see. So it's never kind of ha, hun, da, woo, wah, unless that's the music you're playing, of course. Okay, I go to Debussy. Did I? No, I didn't do it. Yeah, of course, because I was playing the A clarinet. Another example. This is my heresy. And I have to tell everybody that you experiment with this and you find your way. You don't have to play like I play. And I'm not at all interested in ideology or philosophy of playing, anything like that. Doesn't matter to me at all. I'm just showing what works for me. Okay, so why am I going to Debussy? For that little passage there, which is so awkward, but I end up playing it in a way which maybe nobody else does, but yeah, so here I'm just moving the wrist and then this is time, right?
No.
Yeah, okay, we have just a little time. I'm almost done with this. Here. So it's with this rotation, I can actually play this passage in tune. Because everyone is, you know, we end up playing microtones, and it's fast enough, and we're all used to it, so it does. But and here, so here the hand moves like that, and then rotates down. Okay, so much for that. Since we don't have much time left, I still have one more thing, and this is very important. And remember I said in the very beginning of this how we need force, and we have this idea of the sponge. So this is that we actually feel the notes. Yeah. So we have there should be a feeling of squeezing and lifting. But there's one more thing. And this is something that I discovered actually recently, which is kind of nice. It's like you never reach the end of the road until you reach the end of the road, of course. But anyway, and I always mentioned how, in a certain way, you should play as if both hands are one. Here. So then. Something like that. And of course I always play too fast just to demonstrate. But here I don't play. So the hands go up, the hands go down. And then again rotation. This is here. because here I use this B. That way and that way. Okay, I'm just going too fast and this is not quite right. But anyway, this is gives you an idea of how to manipulate the hand in a very organized way. But this is the point. It's not simply that I move up with both hands and down with both hands. That the left hand supports the right hand. And not only that, that especially this finger here in the left hand is the critical finger. And what do I mean by that? In order to understand this, the first thing we do is we do another exercise where you just go sort of down and up like this, but don't touch the thing. Yeah, and you can do, but it's hard to know exactly that your hands are together. Uh-oh. Yeah, but let's say we just do this, and we go this, we touch simply these fingers. It doesn't matter what the finger is, but you just go down and you touch. Then it becomes very easy to coordinate together. And it's a good idea to actually do this as an exercise. You see. And how come it's easy to coordinate? Because we feel it. See, so we live basically by feel. And other parts to maybe go along with that. So we have two hands when we play. If I play. And when the right hand is playing, the left hand is down. So this finger especially, I call the bridge. So if I'm playing here, let's say I'm just playing F major, I actually feel the whole hand squeezing, but especially this finger. Arpeggio. You see, so I'm feeling this hand and squeezing this hand when I play this hand. Now the right hand is generally up when the left hand is playing, unless there's a combined fingering you have. That's so when I hear. So there, I feel that the right hand should participate in the left hand's motion, even though the right hand is up and is not actually participating in the production of the sound, of the pitch, I would say. Here, that's my little homage to Tchaikovsky. This here. Then I squeeze this here. Now here, yeah. So, and then here, I squeeze as I go do-a-dum. There. Okay. Then, with that, there's a last little detail, which is that in order to play with great technical security, you actually have to slow your fingers down. And that is because mistakes will generally be, and there must be some exceptions to this, but almost all the time, I would say, mistakes happen because the finger moves too fast. So let's have this here, for instance, this. Oh no, I made a mistake. And I hear this so often. It's a tradition in the clarinet world to play that as a mess. You know. Like that. You see. So what's happening is that the finger is moving too fast, and the finger is not lifting. So you need, so you have to feel, yeah. And what's a very good idea is to have points, sort of like rock climbing. If you want to get up there, you can't simply jump the entire, unless you're in some kind of ninja movie. But instead, you need to have hooks. So we need hooks. And in this particular case, there, and I hook and I grab. See, so there are two hooks that I have. You see, and then I feel those points. And there I go, and the fingers don't just go, oh no, to the end. You see. So you have to slow your fingers down, and you need these hooks, these moments of in a certain way, stasis, I would say, where the fingers actually rest, or actually, in effect, they squeeze, or if they're up, they have an anti-squeeze here. That's which an anti-squeeze is a lifting. So, for instance, if you're in the G is always a problem, and that's because there's no hands. So it's like you're playing. Oh no, the clarinet fell. So so when you grab too quickly, and then it doesn't work. That's another note. So also there, the G is that. So it's not. I don't look at that as a hook, but as a way that dum, da da dum. So that's where. So I think I've actually outworn my welcome. Do we have questions? Yeah. So any questions, maybe I just answer them now.
Philippe asking, is this the rotation done with the wrist or the hand?
Well, for this we need to understand anatomy a little bit. You see, because you see we have joints which move this way, that way. So this rotation comes from the wrist, which moves. See, wrist moves this way, and will move this way. Now this way is moves here. You see, but a lot of times people move this way, which is I think is dangerous, and that's moving from the shoulder. You see. You see. So it is this way, and I think that you don't have to think too much about it. But see, but there is a difference. Like for instance, if you move your arm over and around, you get a lot more rotation. If you move your hand just this way, you get just a little bit. But on the clarinet, the rotation is very subtle. You see, so it is that way, but it's also this way with that. You see, and especially with the left hand, this way too. You see, and this way. See? So there are. I mean. Our bodies are amazing in a certain sense, you know. That's the way we can. Yeah. So yeah. So I don't know if that answers the question, but just sort of feel it that you can do this, and you should practice if you have rotation. Just this, for instance. So you can lean the clarinet, and you just practice this way, and then what's very good is, let's say you do this B flat to D. Here, and even hold the hand here. Don't take it off, so you experience what that means. So you're not doing this, you're not doing that, you see. Then the other exercise, which I gave really without actually great explanation, is this here for the right hand. Where you raise the whole hand, and then by rotating, you go to the next note, rather than you see. So what is very important is to feel, and then you'll understand how the rotation works.
Changing the pinky notes.
Yeah, the pinky notes are changing with the whole hand position. We can do the same thing with the left hand also. It's a little more complicated in terms of pitch, but it works the same way. So that you feel that the whole hand participates in your technique. And I get even to the point where I feel particular technical passage just requires a particular positioning. You see, just like it's a, that's straight. And then that's this way. You see? Here. And also scales. If you play straight, but E major has that motion, for instance, you see. And you should feel that. I would mention one more thing about this, which is just simply with the clarinet, don't worry if the clarinet shakes in your mouth when you're playing. If it goes like that, don't worry about that. As you get more fluent with the rotation, you will find that the shaking maybe is less. Maybe just you get used to it. But there's nothing wrong with that. Okay.
One more question.
One more question.
Why do you use this F sharp instead of this F sharp or the Debussy and Stravinsky? Is there any reason for that?
Because it's more fun. Okay. Now, the only thing is that I can play. That's one and one or the other. I don't care. You see, and you can use that F sharp. I use it. I use it quite a lot. So even here, I will use that maybe, or maybe not. You see, depending on my mood. See, if I use this though, there is a rotation this way and that way. You see. So here, how does it go? I'm always upside. I forgot. That's right. Is that right? Yeah. You see. But what that does is if I'm playing that, I can go to here very easily because my right hand is not playing two notes next to each other. But it's not a big deal difference. Yeah. So again, I'm not ideological. You find your way how to do it. But basic principles are always there. Any other question? No? In that case, I think that we finish for today. I could play some more things on the YouTube, but I won't do that now. And next week, I will see you again, and we'll be talking, and I think I will play more next week for you. That's perfect. Okay. Take care.